That garb you wear, could you be the legendary hero? Has the king at long last found the hero of time? What is the matter? Do you not understand ancient Hylian tongue? So, you are not the hero of time.
Welcome to Podtendo's Legend of Zelda Wind Waker Retrospective. Over the next few episodes, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the thematical elements, looking at the gameplay, and discussing the characters from Nintendo's masterpiece. If you haven't played this game before, or if it's just been a while, we do recommend that you pick up a copy to experience the journey with us. Hey guys, welcome back to The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker Retrospective by Podtendo? Alright, screwed that one up. Good job, me. Good job. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into thematical elements, gameplay, game design, and reliving this polarizing take on The Legend of Zelda. We are going to spoil the adventure, so if you haven't experienced this game for yourself, or it's just been a while, please go play it for yourself before continuing or playing along with us over the next few months. In our first episode, we looked at the pop cultural landscape, told about our first memories, started our adventure, and we attempted to save a pirate girl, attempted to save a pirate girl, invade a fortress to save our sister, and come face to face with a dark wizard named Ganondorf before being thrown out to sea. I'm your co-host Nick, and I'm joined by
Tyson.
Cool. All right. I didn't know what we were doing when we started this podcast, and I think it showed, but we're here. Wind Waker. Yay.
Yeah, good. You know what? It's I think we're a little rusty, but it's good. It's good to kind of dive into this game. I know I've been enjoying my experience so far, and it is a very familiar game, I feel. Even though I haven't played this game in a very long time.
Yeah, in terms of Zelda games, I don't know, I've only maybe played this one twice. I played it maybe once or twice on the original GameCube.
Yeah, once only for me. I've only played this one other time.
And I've only ever played the HD remake. That's the version I'm playing right now. This is only my second time through that experience. So in terms of overall Zelda's just played, this one is low. I think Twilight Princess I'm probably on 3 to 4, maybe 5 playthroughs of that one over my lifetime, right? Skyward Sword is probably 1, but there's reasons
that's
for
fair.
that.
That's fair, though. That one you deserve your 1.
But even Breath of the Wild, I think I'm up to 3. I think I've played through that game now twice, and I have like another copy that's just up till I got the Master Sword or something, right? So like nothing else done, just Shrines and Master Sword kind of thing, right? So I'm on like 2.5 playthroughs. So again, this one walks in as low playtime in my life, but I'm also enjoying myself.
Yeah, and it's I think maybe the reason I haven't played this game so much is because it's not super available.
Yes.
Unless you have a Wii U or a GameCube handy, this game is very hard to play. I think that's if this game was more available, it'd be definitely more in the rotation.
That's definitely it. It is only on GameCube. Twilight Princess saw a GameCube release and a Wii release, right? So it kind of lived on in that legacy a little bit, and then it had an HD release.
Yeah,
so
and
it was just more accessible.
And even Skyward Sword is now accessible on the Switch, but Wind Waker not so much.
Yeah. So it is an accessibility thing, but if you can go back and find yourself a copy, whether it be OG. Or I guess buying a Wii U. Probably emulation is probably a big guy with this one, right? So, not that we always encourage that. I don't care. I don't care if you emulate. In fact, emulate everything. Don't pay money for these old properties. If there's an actual remastered on the Switch, cool. Maybe go buy that. But it should also be cheap. How much do you think Skyward Sword right now on the Switch is?
I bet you it's $80 full price.
How for an old game, for an old crappy Zelda game?
Yeah, and that's a game that you're miserable playing. And I think so. Even the Link's Awakening, that one, I grabbed that one when it went on sale for like $30.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a bargain. I'm gonna buy this and add it to the collection. And I think it's now back up to full price of like, the 75, 80 bucks.
Yeah,
These games should not be this full price if you're just re-releasing these games.
Yeah. So as a result, I know technically as content creators and YouTube people, you always say you should play play emulators. Screw Nintendo. Screw them and their stupid anti-privacy and like not releasing stuff. It's dumb. Make this accessible. It's a great game, great experience. Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker. It's good, says Podtendo Podcast.
It's very good, says Podtendo Podcast. It's good.
I should listen to this podcast. They give very deep, insightful reviews. Look at these like things that are plastered all over the New York Times Magazine. It is good.
Yep. Says Podtendo.
Okay, all right. So the Legend of Zelda Wind Waker was developed by Nintendo A&D, sold 4.6 million copies. Release date was March 24th, 2003. How Long to Beat has this game at 29 hours, and on eBay, this game's going to set you back about $100. So if you don't have it, that's why we're saying emulate it.
Yeah. For some reason, because GameCube didn't sell really well, they have a GameCube Premium for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know why it's
sucks. But.
Lower. Because I saw Tears of the Kingdom sold 20 million copies. That's a lot. That's a lot of copies to sell for a game from last year, right? And just one of those things we just kind of moved on. We're like, oh yeah, Tears of the Kingdom is pretty good. 20 million copies is a lot of freaking video games. Holy.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there's some successful games on Small Tangent. Like I've been playing the new Prince of Persia. Rumors are that like it's not selling well, like less than 500,000 units.
Okay.
And it's like that's pretty par for the course. Some of the best-selling games, I think, like last year, Tears of the Kingdom was one of them, and the only other ones were like the Call of Duties of the world and the FIFAs of the world that always sell millions of bloody copies. So this game to sell as much as it did, or and Tears of the Kingdom sell as much as it did. Like this franchise prints money. I can see why they hold it close to the chest, but it'd sell even more if you release these games more often. So they were accessible.
Well, look at the Capcom model. We were talking about this before with just Mega Man games. Like you can, like I own like 5 different versions of every single Mega Man, like of the first collection of Mega Man games because they just keep releasing it and they're on sale and I just buy them, and that's how consumerism works. Anyways, Nintendo, you run a successful business and sell 20 million copies of your game in 1 year. You don't need to listen to me. What you should listen to me, let's talk about the development of the Wind Waker and see how did that come to be. So I think the last episode we looked at kind of primarily just the Wayback Machine. This one we're going to do kind of development details, and I don't know what we're doing for the next show. It might just be more kind of gameplay something. I don't know how this one breaks down as well, but today, development details. Last episode, I did mention that there was a demo that was first shown at the 2000 Space World Exposition that showed Link sword fighting with Ganondorf. The team had exhausted its ideas for this style, and early on in development started drawing cartoonish/younger Link, which caught the team's eye, and the team seized the new gameplay and combat possibilities afforded by the stylized cartoon aesthetic. To achieve this look, they used cell shading on 3D models, giving the look of an interactive cartoon. The team quickly decided the setting should be an island in an ocean, determined it would provide interesting visuals and mechanics in the cell shading style. This in turn inspired the central sailing feature. Miyamoto remained dubious of the art direction and reminded Anoma that it wasn't too late to change course. Ultimately, Miyamoto relented due to the team's enthusiasm about the cartoon style, and in fact, that it could have taken decades to make a more realistic Zelda game with their resources. Huh. Okay, cool.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of benefits of going with a cell shaded 3D. That's what's very popular at this time because hardware is just super limited. But you wanna get every last inch of performance you can out of this. So having super high detailed models is hard to render on old hardware.
Yeah, and I mean in terms of longevity too, right? Like it was the best decision, right? Like it just aged seamlessly. Like when you look at, say, Sly Cooper, which was also kind of the notorious PlayStation cell shaded kind of game, Wind Waker versus like anything else, they just still look good. They look clean. They look crisp. They work right. So it was ultimately the best decision. And good thing speaking that they would have had time to make more things if they made a more realistic Zelda. That's good, because they didn't have time to finish this game. So a poorly received game demo at at the 2001 Space World took Nintendo by shock, and they ultimately revealing further information, or they limited revealing further information about the game until the team had a finished playable demo. The demo was well received in May of 2002 at E3. The reviews had mostly come around to the new artwork direction at this time. During the final stages, 2 dungeons that fell behind schedule were cut and replaced with a quest to recover Triforce pieces around the Great Sea. Elements of these dungeons were recycled for later Zelda games. In May of 2003, Nintendo bundled the Wind Waker with limited edition GameCubes in North America and Europe. On November 17th that year, Nintendo launched another promotion via a compilation disc, The Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition. This disc included ports of the original Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask, as well as a Wind Waker demo and 2 featurettes. Never sold commercially, the collector's edition was included in another GameCube bundle and was made available to existing GameCube's owner who registered their systems or subscribed to Nintendo Power.
Yeah, that's the kind of collection that's a Capcom collection right there. Let's just throw all our games in one big old disc. I remember working in GameStop, and one of my coworkers actually had this. Ooh. And it was like the legendary thing, like, oh, we don't even play this. This sits on the shelf, and we do not touch this because this is so rare.
Yeah.
So very, very cool. It was actually, Sean. That was Sean's little whole hidden gem that he always had. And you're like, oh my God, how did you get this? Like, madness. This legendary. I think it was the Master. For some reason, it was called the Master Quest or whatever.
So there's
but no.
2 right now. So there is a Legend of Zelda promotional disc. I'm looking at it right now. It goes for over $300 on eBay. But there is one that's under $100, but it doesn't have the game. Doesn't have no manual. So you would just get the game and the disc, which isn't terrible. And here's another one, $90. And I think it's just the game and the disc. So it's not super exclusive. And then there was an Ocarina of Time Master Quest edition. So it was Ocarina of Time plus what they called the Master Quest. So just kind of a revamped version of all the dungeons. They're a bit more difficult. And that was a promotional disc released as well.
Right. Okay. There was 2. Because I was like, promotional disc? What is this? Different than the Master Quest? And yeah, it definitely was. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool stuff. I mean, if you're a collector, probably cool to kind of track down. And the nice thing about even expensive retro games is it seems like the price has kind of been capped for a while. 'Cause I feel like the $300 price and $100 price was kind of what I was looking at back.
Like and there was definitely the market was inflated a little while ago too. If you were trying to get your hands on some of these games, they were quite expensive, but they've come down now. So like I know I have the promotional disc of the Ocarina of Time and the Master Quest, and it's only fetching about $95, so it's actually a bit more expensive than that other one, right? So from a collector point of view for myself, I'm like, well, I already have the Wind Waker, I have a Twilight Princess, I have the Master Quest. Why not get the 3rd or 4th, collector's disc for the GameCube, and then I could have all the Zeldas on the GameCube. It's not terrible, right? And it's good to see those things drop a little bit. So
yeah, and it's that those prices are reasonable. It's not like you're spending $1,000 per game or something ridiculous. It's like, no, for less than like $500, or you'd have almost the entire collection, even if you started again from scratch.
A couple years ago, the used market was so stupid. I had Twilight Princess HD, the GameCube boxed collection, and I sold it to some guy for $200. I think it was like $300.
Yeah.
And he paid for it, and then he opened the box before he left my house. Wanted to make sure the game was in the sealed package. And I was like, oh, I see you're playing it. That's interesting. And now I think that goes for about 100 and something. So I definitely made my money. I could actually go back and rebuy the box and have everything and still have actually made money on the sale, right? So that used market has come down quite a bit.
Yep.
So if you're a collector and you've waited and there's something you need, it's not a terrible time in the market to buy. It's kind of a buyer's market. And there you go. What a podcast about Wind Waker. We talk about buying stuff. Ooh, boy.
Yes, and collecting discs. But you got to kind of talk about that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big part. That was 2/3 of the development details. In terms of other than that, we talked about cell shading. Eliminated content in this game. It shows. The one thing I'll say about this game is going back, I'm like, man, this game is great. There's lots of cool elements. I think lots of the things that they do with the art direction, the puzzles, the overall game choices, the narrative choices that they have in this one. In fact, we're going to get into it probably in the next game, but this might be my favorite iteration of Ganon.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And we'll get into it a little bit more. I really enjoy kind of the end point, right? The kind of climax of this story. I think it kind of goes in an interesting direction. It could have changed the franchise as we know it, right? It didn't.
Oh, for sure.
It didn't, but I think it was trending in that direction, and the fact that they just cut content from this game, that is this game's greatest Achilles heel, right?
Yeah.
The lack of dungeons, the fact that the Triforce quest, is it kind of terrible? Was it replacing 2 dungeons? 100%. If you put 2 more dungeons in this game and get rid of that Triforce quest and like change it into something else, we have a different experience. But again, they were limited. They had to push. It shows. I think this game's still pretty good. But I think maybe when we get to the echelon of like greatest games of all time, I think it falls flat because of that lack of development, right? And we see it right off the top when you see they had to cut stuff because they didn't have time. That's not good in media. In terms of movies or TV shows or video games, that's never a good thing, and they suffer. So let's see if we can kind of appreciate that game with that in mind, right? I guess going forward.
The game we got, not the stuff that got cut. Kind of like the same thing with the ending of Metal Gear Solid 2. It's like a lot of games from this time has to cut stuff. You cannot patch things in after the fact. Nowadays, they would just release an unfinished game and then
put it in
patch
later.
it in with some DLC or whatever.
And 3 years later, we're like, oh no, Cyberpunk was good after all. Oh, okay, sure, cool, great.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if you had the opportunity, they could have cleaned it up. They didn't, but we'll live with it. So now we kind of know what that looks like. We know the pop cultural landscape. We know what the world looked like, the development of this game looked like. We can get into this game proper. So 60 minutes into our podcast, we'll talk about the actual game today. And we actually have stuff to do, as opposed to last time when we just fought a guy in the woods, stormed a fortress, and got thrown out to ocean. So let's pick up there. So I think that's a story recap. We were thrown away by a big bird when we met Ganon at his tower. And now we wake up and talk to a boat. So we are tasked at finding a sail on Windfall Island. We can talk to the shop owner, and if we free his friend Tingle from jail, he gives us a sail. That's a steep price. You can explore a little bit, but I don't think there's anything available to us at this point in the time. I think it's just kind of run around.
Yeah, nothing too special here that we can really. It's like a pretty small little opening area.
Mm-hmm.
Can you play the battleship game yet?
I don't know. I didn't try. You might be able to play the random battleship game, but I imagine that you don't have a lot of rupees either, right? Like it's not like you're maxed out on coins or anything. So
no, and if you are using it to buy the sale, like grinding out your 80 rupees takes a little bit of time. So
yeah.
But money may not be a big issue later in this game, but right now you're kind of broke.
Yes, and I think I could talk about that at some point. Because you're playing an emulated... Are you playing an emulated Wii U or GameCube?
GameCube.
So you don't have fast sale, eh?
No.
Okay.
I just can double the speed or like hold tab and then it runs fast. So.
Okay, so you kind of have double. Okay, awesome.
Kind of, yeah.
From here, though, we are tasked at sailing east until we see a massive dragon sitting on top of a mountain. Exploring the shores, we can get the titular Wind Waker and learn a song that can change the direction of the winds. We can meet the Rito people. These are kind of bird people. Find out that their prince isn't brave enough to fly, and his attendant, her name is Medley, and she's kind of a big deal, asks us to meet her later. We meet her later in the volcanic crater. We throw her, get a bottle, and follow her and enter the game's first dungeon. So did you have fun meeting the Rito people, exploring Dragon Roost Island?
Yeah. Well, to me, it's like I keep having the same of like, wow, this really feels like a Breath of the Wild prequel.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly. So it's like I'm loving all this stuff. Like the Rito people, it's like, oh, I love this. This is so cool. I mean, maybe I wouldn't have cared the first like playthrough when I was back in the day, but now that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is out, it's like, bird people. Is this where all this all?
Oh,
so many things that are staples nowadays is like here. Mm-hmm. This is such a like pre-modern Zelda game. So fascinating that a lot of that stuff. So I'm loving all that those little things. So.
Okay, awesome. So from my game too, I'm playing New Game Plus, or I guess like the hero mode on the Wii U, and you don't actually get your green clothes. Instead, you just stay in your opening pajamas the entire adventure.
Okay,
it's just one weird thing. So I don't have a green hat. I just have my blonde hair. I've got a blue tunic on with brown pants.
Oh my god!
So you know what I look like?
Breath of the Wild.
I look like freaking Breath. I'm like, what the fuck? Like it's not jarring anymore. It was jarring. I remember when I did it the first time. I actually think I stopped my second playthrough and ended up reloading and like trying like a New Game Plus with the actual hero's attire, because I'm like, no man, Link's got to be wearing green and he's got to have a hat. You can't have him without a hat and just blue shirt, and maybe sometimes has a little leaf that he can like fly around through the sky. I'm like, what game am I playing right now? Because this doesn't really feel like Wind Waker. Interesting. Okay.
No, it's like, oh my god, there's so many little things. And then it's like, hey, why don't you go exploring this section of the map? And maybe there's like a little mini shrine / dungeon in here where you go complete a little puzzle, do a little like enemy rush, and here's a little reward. Like the submarines are just all the bloody like temple or the temples,
the
shrines. Yeah, it's like, and you're like, oh my god, it's literally such a template.
Yep.
There's so many of the things that you're like, this is just Breath of the Wild.
This was a stepping stone, right? So Ocarina of Time was the first attempt into the 3D world. This was them trying to refine things, and lots of the things that they start toying around with, like Tyson said, basically become staples of the series. So now we are in our first dungeon, though. We have a pretty linear path through the dungeon that includes some lava pits, wooden bridges, fire snakes. You fight a moblin mini-boss, and are rewarded with a grappling hook that allows you to swing over pits and platform in unique ways. And rather than kind of diving through all these dungeons and trying to give you like a run-on sentence or two to kind of explain everything, I'm going to do a quick little summary, and then I think we're going to do a bit more non-structured way in this retrospective. So let's talk about a most notable puzzle. Pick one puzzle per dungeon, outside of like bigger terms, bigger things that we liked, and then the boss. So what is your most notable or your favorite dungeon puzzle?
Geez, I can't really even think of one off the top of my head. It's pretty just standard. Why don't you go first, and something maybe jogs my memory?
Sure. So for myself, there is a room later towards this dungeon. I think it's where you get I don't think it's the master key, but maybe it's definitely one of the keys you needed to progress like later in the dungeon. And it's got these little fire snakes. So they come out of the lava, and you fight them, and you kill them. And you're like, cool. And another one comes out, and you fight and kill that. And then you fight and kill another one. And then you're like, wait, what's the point of this room? And as you kind of, look around, there's 2 switches, a fire chest. And what they actually want you to do is stun the little fire snake, drop it on a switch. You go stand on the other switch. That gives you access to the chest. Every time I've ever played this game, I think I fall for this puzzle where I end up killing 3-4 snakes, realizing they're just kind of infinitely spawning before I kind of like check and say, oh, what else is going on in this room, right? So instantly I go to combat without looking at the puzzle. So I like that they kind of challenge me a little bit and say, oh, sometimes combat isn't the solution, right? You got to use your brain. And I like using my brain.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. I think that there's also one where you kind of have to make you're using water pots.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have to like kind of like make it. I think that that's always kind of interesting.
Sick.
It's like it's a little
That or
physics based
yeah,
thing.
or like the big thing with this one too is we have rope bridges, and this is the first level where if you find that if you cut the ropes that support the bridges, you can actually make the bridges collapse, right? Altering the gameplay, altering the level, altering in these big ways. Very interactive levels, and I was like, oh, neat, cool. And I remember as a kid being blown away with that, right? Just having fun, just cutting ropes and watching myself fall into the lava.
Oh yeah, and the even just the sword combat of like if you're locked on your Z targeting onto somebody and you strike them, it's going to be vertical. But if you're not Z targeting, it's going to be horizontal. So it's like there's this whole kind of like different way of doing things, or depending on like if you're mashing the button or if you're holding the button. It's like it's interesting. Like they're even trying to incorporate the vertical and horizontal different attack types.
Yeah.
In this game, and it's like that's fascinating. Like they're really going for it. Like they're getting really creative, and I love that. And then and getting the grappling hook is fantastic because then you can start like stealing. It's like a little quick. You can steal like a feather or some items off a moblin or whatever, and then you can kill them. So that ticks the I can grind out. Before I kill enemies, well, I'm going to do this every enemy I find.
Like that, we need to get collectible items in this game, rare drops. A lot of nice things are happening from this game. One thing on the combat note, one of the criticism I've always heard from Ocarina of Time is it's like the weight approach. You know, guy holds a sword, he attacks, and you attack. Or, you know, it's just kind of like wait. This game almost appears like it has similar values, but the moblins or the big moblin guys, when you fight them, they do hold their spears in certain orientations, and if they're holding it vertically and you slash them vertically, you do damage, right? So you can actually break their defenses. So it isn't as horrendous of a kind of wait and see approach that Ocarina of Time. There is a little bit more nuance to the combat in this game, and I appreciate it. I've noticed it thus far. I appreciate it. Finally, the boss in this game, speaking of swinging your grappling hook, we have to fight Goma. Why not? Big lava spider. Cool. Covered in armor. You have to swing your grappling hook onto Bloom's tail. You can pull the dragon through the roof, crack Goma's armor. I think you have to do that 3 to 4 times. Once it's destroyed,
something like that.
You're able to grapple her eye, pull it towards you, and deal some damage. Not super difficult. You only have 3 hearts. They probably should have given you a heart after Forsaken Fortress. Very similar to like a Link's Awakening, right? The first heart you get in that game, it's just from fighting that one random chain throwing guy, right? So they definitely could have had a little bit, one more heart piece, make it a little bit more difficult. But when you only have 3 hearts, you're kind of limited because you don't want to make it inaccessible to like younger players too, right? People that might be picking this up for the first time. So easier dungeon, but you're allowed 1 easy dungeon in a Zelda game.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, usually the first easy one's the Great Deku Tree, but this is just a different place.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Awesome.
Yes.
So we beat that. In doing so, Valu can now give his scales to the Ruto people, so maybe the little prince can go up, get his wing. He's so excited. He gives us the first, I think we're collecting goddess pearls. So we get our first
I think
pearl.
They're called pearls.
And it's like Din or something.
I think so. I think the first one's Din.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So I think Nehru's the second. I can't remember now.
And Foror is the green one. Anyways.
Or is it Foror then? Anyways, yeah.
Yeah. I just think of like the pearls or like the magic spells from Ocarina of Time, and I think it's Din. So we have our pearl, and we're off. There you go. So now we can kind of explore really anywhere. This game kind of wanted you to go to at least Dragon Roost first. Now I think we can, now that we can kind of switch directions of the wind, apparently we can go anywhere we want. So when I was looking ahead, I could go back to Windfall Island, the version I'm playing, and go get the Swift Sail. If I wanted to, there are some unlockables there too. I can go and get heart pieces. There's a couple of islands you can meet along the way. For my money, I think just narratively and knowing the fact that I'm going back to these places, let's go south. We're tasked at heading south. Let's just head south. You can find a bottle. There's a giant Octorok you can meet along the way that just kind of kills you because you have nothing to fight them with. Great. After we find our bottle, though, we come across 2 massive trees emerging from the sea. Our boat asks us to go talk to a tree. We meet the tree, stop some choo-choos from being on his nose, and then are given our means of exploration for the series, the Deco leaf.
Yeah. Pretty cool little area. And I mean, this version's what, Deku Tree?
Yeah.
It's a staple of the series. Happy he's in it. And I mean, getting this Deku leaf is very, very familiar. But this is the first leaf floating thing. Like, we've had a feather before, but that's only like gives you the option to jump. Now we're like, oh hey, if you can see it and you can kind of fly there, you can do it. So
there you go. We also find out though that one of the little wooden boys that I guess are now like the Kokiri children, turning the little wooden people, they fell though into the forbidden woods across the sea, and now we're tasked at gliding over to our second dungeon. Oh boy. Yeah. It doesn't seem too bad, but if you set your wind at your back and use some tornadoes or like whirlwinds, they kind of blow you up. You should have enough, even though you only have half a magic meter, you should have enough magic to get over. Make sure to readjust the wind when you get to like the center platform, fill up your magic, and you should have no problem getting to the Forbidden Woods. I remember feeling weird and being like, man, this is a challenge. I've never glided in a Zelda game. For some reason, it feels very normal to be gliding in Zelda at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only tricky thing is it's kind of hard to judge how far things are with the cel-shaded graphics. So I think I missed the tornado the first time, and then it's this thing actually moves fast and it's kind of far away.
Oh, I didn't adjust the wind direction, so my second time I was like almost pixel perfect, getting across with like a cross breeze in my face and trying to hit the tornado, and like it was tough. And then finally I was like, oh, I have to change the wind direction. And then once the wind was at my back, I like flew across the last little bits, and I was like, I see. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's like this makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. Second dungeon, though, we're on to the Forbidden Woods. And in this dungeon, it sees us throwing nuts at doors, using the Deku leaf to blow around some platforms, and we are chased by bugs. Luckily, killing a big moth gets us the boomerang, and now we can kill every flying parasect in this god-forbidden dungeon. Neat. Cool. All right. What's your most notable dungeon puzzle?
I don't really know if one off the top of my head, but I know there's the room with little creepy crawly little like spiky things that get stuck to you. They freak you out the first time you see them because they're like these creepy little balls, and they move only when you move, and it's like they just move erratically, and it's creepy, and it does such a good ooh, what is these things? I can't wait to murder them. And I just I love their character design. Like it's not very often in a I think in Ocarina of Time the Deku tree is very creepy near the bottom of it. But
yeah.
It's like I love those little creepy areas. Whenever these little guys show up, it just creeps me out, and I'm like, I love that. That just I think these are one of my favorite enemies.
Okay.
And it's so I'm like, that's my notable thing about this dungeon.
That's fair. There was a room where you have to, I think it's to get the master key, you have to pick up a bomb, have a platform, and then be able to throw the bomb into a big tree root, and then hopefully destroy the eye with the bomb. That's how you get the master key. I think I like that. It's about the third or fourth iteration of the blow platforms around with your Deku puzzle or Deku leaf, and it's just about the right challenge, and then they move on, and then okay, cool. Now that you've got your boomerang, potentially you don't even need, you can just target the eyes and your boomerang kills them, right? So you're like, oh, okay, cool, neat. We moved past that mechanic. But that very last one, I think it was done in such a way that it's a good challenge. You feel smart doing it again. I like when puzzles, I'm like, I get it. It's not super obvious. Cool, great. I like that solution, right? So that's fine. I like that you like the little black spiny guys. They do weight you down.
They do. They do. And they're weird. They're creepy, and I feel like there's like a little boss battle where they keep spawning, and they're just everywhere, and they're rolling around. So you're just like
Mothma or whatever. A recurring enemy actually from Link to the Past. So the forest or the Thief's Dungeon in Dark World, Mothma. That enemy is the same name as this big moth that we fight here that gets us the boomerang.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. I like. It's always like I was gonna say Moss and Zelda for some reason
It's
just
like
work
they
as a really
love
good
this
ending.
game for some reason, this series, and they're paying an homage to it, and they're not just changing things like everyone thought.
They're not just making references to make references. They're kind of like, let's build and use actual new character designs and old character designs, and let's build on it.
Okay.
Because I love the also like it just. The idea of like in the Great Deku Tree, there's bugs. You're always killing bugs in the Great Deku Tree because the bugs are the enemy of trees and nature, apparently.
Yeah, they kind of live there, and they're unnatural and cool. Then from there, the boss of this area is Kele Demos. So it's a big plant hanging from the ceiling. It's kind of the final iteration of a Deku Baba. So one of those those guys that come out and attack you. And I think we've seen 2 iterations, but obviously this is like kind of the final form. Maybe it was corrupted by Ganon and grew to be this big kind of formidable parasite that was taking out or that was attacking this dungeon. Not entirely sure, but probably some type of evil that was corrupted. You cut it down with your boomerang, and then you can attack the little dingly thing inside of it. Do that a couple times, and you can save Makar. There's lots of timing. Like Tyson had mentioned with the battles earlier, when you're attacking enemies, they do kind of play this dramatic. What instrument is it? Dun, 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 dun. It's very melodic, and if you're kind of fighting enemies, they kind of have these like building ascending tones. I don't know exactly what instrument it is that they're playing, but it is very satisfying. And if you kind of listen and watch for the visual cues while you're playing this game, it provides lots of feedback. So there's a way of attacking the little dingly thing, running away before the plant opens up and eats you, or it eats you a couple times, which happened to me.
Oh yeah, and this, like, I know they had a little bit of dynamic sounds and music with Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, but this just feels like they're trying to take, like, the melody is giving you a hint of timing as well, and I'm like, I love that, like, because I don't really think that as they start kind of going with this more dynamic, as like, you know, you come across an enemy and the music changes, or like depending on the enemy's attack, the music might change again, or the pacing might change, or it might have different stings, that like there's not like a really distinct beautiful melody. This is kind of on that cusp of losing all those beautiful melodies, because I like the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom soundtracks, but there's not like a song that you're like gets stuck in your head, whereas with Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, there's like these very memorable theme songs that play through it, and this is kind of on that tail end of like there's some themes, but a lot of it's more of like this dynamic music that's enjoyable to spend lots of time with. You're not going to listen to that same like song whenever you walk into Long Long Ranch. Where you can like, oh, okay, I can almost start humming it before it finishes loading. Whereas this, it's always kind of unique and dynamic, so you're kind of always like getting something new. So it's good to listen to with the music on. It's one of these like I encourage listening to music or listening to the sound with this game, whereas something like almost Ocarina of Time, where I love the music, I'm more likely to put in some podcasts or put on, like, watch a YouTube
Very
video.
much so. Going to the market and hearing the ding, 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 you're like, oh my god. Like, you almost can't do it, versus here it is, just because it is a wind orchestra that is kind of doing the chord. It sounds beautiful through it. I think it's a violin. That does the combat right sound. Just as I'm sitting here thinking about it while you're talking, I think it's a violin, right? So it is just very beautiful harmonic, and like Tyson mentioned, it is kind of changes throughout the game, right? Even in the Great Sea, you have this big adventuring tone, and then anytime an enemy gets near, you hear kind of like this dire melody pop up, and you're like, ooh, something's happening, right? So it's done very well. And normally we don't talk about music in this game. I would recommend listening to the music in this game. It's pretty good. However, though, we saved Makar. Pretty exciting. We return to the Great Deku Tree. He says, hey, did it. Here is Faror's Pearl. You got 2 of them. You only need 1 more. You only need to go find Nairu's Pearl. And you can, I don't know exactly what we're accomplishing. We're doing something. We're collecting pearls for some reason. Maybe it was mentioned to us. But anyways, we can set off to the last place, Great Fish Island. Woo, baby. So we can head west to get to the last of the 3 goddess pearls. Before we find the island in ruin. Ganondorf appeared to have used dark magic to destroy the island but the great fish Jabu escaped to Outset Island. Oh, baby.
Yeah, yeah. And very cool thing, like it's when we first start the game, it's very sunny. But I think after we complete the Forest Haven, it's a very like everywhere you go is kind of stormy.
It lightly stormy. I think it's lightly stormy
Yeah.
right now, and then specifically this next, it becomes constant night and storm, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So this is kind of a part where you're like, ooh, neat. Now again, I think this was included because it's kind of seems fetch questy what happens, but I think they lost content here in Great Fish Island. Obviously, was supposed to be a third dungeon. They lost time, and they decided let's get them running around the ocean. Good enough. No one will notice. I do feel like there was some type of like lost, I don't know, just opportunity here. Cool. I like the idea of, what would be actually really fun? There should have been a third dungeon on this island, but what if it was destroyed? And you just visited parts of it out of sequence, right? Like you could have an opening hall, and then the rest of the dungeon could be destroyed, and the next room is, say, where the mini boss is. You go fight a little guy, you get an item, you go, and you see that there's like I don't know, maybe the master key is just out on the beach somewhere because it was destroyed, and you find it, and then you have to go unlock the door and fight a boss, right? Think outside the box a little bit on this, right? The island was destroyed, the dungeon was destroyed, but like parts of it remain. So you just kind of like go from like random room to random room, and you're like, neat. But clearly there's a hole in the wall, so I don't even have to do this puzzle. I can just like escape to the next part, right? I don't know. I think you could add a lot of fun and been fairly creative here, but obviously they ran out of time and decided not to put assets into it, right? So as a result, we have to head to Outset/Windfall Island. So we have to sail to Outset Island. We find out that the Jaboon is like behind a big rock. We're like, oh, we got to go get bombs. So we head to Windfall Island to obtain the bombs that Tetra pirates stole. We use the bombs to open up a cave, talk to Jaboon, and we get the third goddess pearl. Now, this pearl, then the sea was also in perpetual night and storm, so now we can explore the sea, and it's fine. We can find some bottles, there's some upgrades, and some new gear, and order your heart sees fit. Oh, I see. You can get some new upgrades and gear in any order your heart sees fits. Okay, cool. That's fun.
Yeah.
Flying across the sea, boringly, to go get bombs and see caves.
And I guess like this kind of like this kind of is some of the issues with the game. Is like there's no fast travel, so you do have to just sail everywhere you go. But usually it's kind of everything's made up in like here's all these quadrants. When you pull up the map, everything's a quadrant. But there's really only like one interesting thing in each quadrant.
Yes.
So as soon as you essentially do that thing, you're like, well, I never have to come back here again. So you kind of end up just having to like, if you're done a lot of stuff in a row and you have to travel through it, you end up just like waiting. So I could see why in the HD, like the Wii U one, that had even faster sail just to kind of help cut down on the back. But in the GameCube, it's a little tedious. So
yes, and I don't know when you can actually. I think the crappy thing is if for some reason, let's say you didn't go back to Windfall Island, you're trying to get the quick sale from the auction house. The night that you go to the bomb shop and you find out that Nico, the guy that your little buddy at the beginning that made you play a rope swinging game, isn't responsible for the bombs. Obviously, go talk to Nico. You do another swinging things. It's harder, but if you pass it, you get the bombs. Cute, great. I think Tetra always wanted you to have the bombs because she's like kind of playful and cute. Something's going on there. I'm not really sure, but
yep.
Like neat. And then I was like, oh, I should go get the quick sale. Well, except in the event of the game, because it is night, I don't think the auction house is open yet. So I had to come back later, and I was like, it's so annoying. I wish I could go faster. It is kind of fun to travel around the sea, but yeah, if you're playing this game specifically just for a podcast, I could see it being one of those things that weighs on you. I could also see it as part of a game where you're like, I just don't want to travel in this boat anymore. It's kind of boring. It's beautiful. It's great. It's supposed to create a sense of adventure. It's supposed to make you want to explore. You're supposed to want to search the sea for treasure chests and find treasures, but it's kind of, I don't know, like it is one of those things where I could see like it is kind of bland. Yeah, it is kind of bland. but hopefully you have quick sale or you're playing an emulator and you can kind of speed through some of those parts, and then it shouldn't be too bad, right?
Oh yeah, or if you're like not on a time frame, you got months to play the game, then you don't mind.
I had a lot of fun, right?
driving.
Like after I went and talked to Jaboon, everything was calm. I now have a boomerang. I've got my bombs. I went to a bunch of islands, right? Went and saw a bunch of ferries, upgraded my wallets, found some armor, upgraded my bomb bags, upgraded my, you name it. I went and explored a bunch of shops.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like I went
and like
visited guys. I bought extra bottles. I bought heart pieces. I won the auction. I found ways of grinding money on Windfall. I had a lot of fun at this part of the game, and it is kind of open for exploration. You could go as quickly as possible to the next item and just cut it out, or you can spend hours and hours exploring at this point, right? So it's kind of a
yeah, and you got to go to each section of the map and go to your buddy who will add the details on your map. So you got to do that. Like I think it's like 30 sometimes. I don't know how many sections there are on the board.
49.
So, yeah, something like that.
Minus
like,
the ones that, like, I think Forsaken, Fortress, Windfall, Outset are always on there, so it's like 46 times or something like that.
Right. But it's it's interesting. He's a fun little character. I go on to the beetle shops, and then you can there's the one guy with the special beetle with the helmet. He gives you like, oh, here I have everything's very expensive.
Yeah.
But he has good stuff like a heart piece and another bottle. And I feel like I didn't have any bottles, and then now I have all the bottles. It's pretty good.
Nice.
So
solid. Sweet. Yeah. Cool. So with that was like an awkward way of getting through there. But we are now tasked at placing the 3 spiritual stones or pearls, whatever they're called, on the 3 goddess islands. All right. The final one, they start to glow, sound like they explode. Link kind of runs away, and then he comes back cutely as the statue then explodes and launches him into the ocean. And you think, it's great that I'm playing an interactive cartoon. I like that Link's now, for the second time in this adventure, been thrown across the ocean. Our ship comes and picks us up, thankfully. Giant tower the Tower of the God rises from the ocean with these 3 pearls now being activated. Our ship takes us, and we go inside the game's 3rd dungeon.
Yeah. Well, it's like, hey, here's the 3rd dungeon. I thought we were missing 3. Everything happens in 3 in these games.
Yeah. There you go.
But it's this last one's a little interesting.
Well, I mean, I guess if you call what's it called, Forbidden Fortress a dungeon as well.
Yeah, I guess that's
like our 4th one, and you kind of have to count like the the Great Fish Island, and that whole thing is a dungeon, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, yes, 3rd official dungeon. Yay! So now we're inside this giant tower. We're inside the mighty temple. We are tasked at solving 2 puzzles to stop a waterfall, learn a song that controls a statue, and get the bow. What's the most notable dungeon puzzle? So for myself, I said there's a room with a light floor and a statue. So you have to like control the statue, and he walks on this little path underneath the light floor, and then there's just this big gap, and you can't really throw the guy over the gap. So how did you get the statue over the gap?
How did I get this statue? I remember like spending a little bit of time on here, but this was like after my like 6 hours of playing.
Okay.
So it's pretty brain dead at this point, but I feel like just took a little bit of trial and error. I did enjoy moving little buddy because I thought we were just going to use that for like seagulls.
Oh yeah.
I didn't realize that you can just possess statues.
Yeah.
So how did we do that?
So the way I did it was I got them to the far corner, and then there's like a little tiny ledge along the room, and I ended up throwing the statue onto this like little tiny narrow ledge, using Link to jump over the ledge, and then I kind of like carefully walked on this little tiny corner, picked him up, and like got him to the door. But is that the real way of doing this?
No, I feel like I cannot remember.
Okay, cool. So like I found my own solution to that puzzle. I was curious, like, what are you supposed to do? Do you have like a notable puzzle in this room that or this dungeon that stands out, and you're like, oh, that was neat?
Just the water one. Like I like the I think there's like a box that you have to move around.
Oh yeah.
And the water's going up and like it rising with the tides.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I think I screwed it up the first time when I wrecked the box or whatever, and then I had to go move it again, and you have to like set a bomb onto like kind of these like smaller ledges to blow up the rock spots. And that was fun. That was a neat little thing. I always appreciate it. Like this is kind of if I'm gonna be stuck doing a water themed level, this is the best way of doing it. I don't have to be like hit a switch and watch the water go down. It's like it just automatically goes down. It's a timed thing, and then it automatically goes back up. It's like this is a water puzzle I can get behind.
Nice. Okay, solid. And then finally, the boss here is Godan. He's a big face with 2 hands. You shoot the hands with your arrows to stun him, and then you throw bombs in his mouth. He was not very memorable. Okay, cool.
No. I burned through a lot of arrows, and then he just pukes out more, which is cool.
Yep, appreciate that.
Yep, and it like kind of reminds me of what Lord Dodongo. What's the guy in the Shadow Temple?
Oh,
in Ocarina of Time.
Bongo.
Yeah, it reminds me of him mixed with the kind of robotic enemies from Breath of the Wild in a way.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say like this whole kind of the aesthetic, so we'll get into it a little bit, but it has very chic tech, kind of black metal with blue beams of light that create life and create kind of robots in this world, right? So very much like the Sheikah tech that we see in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, kind of just looks like Godan in this area. And actually lots of the puzzles and stuff, very Sheikah looking.
Very much so. And then there's a place we're going later on that I'm like, I think that's just a blatant, like they just took this and they incorporated certain, I'll get into it later. I'll save that for later. But yeah, boss battle, not too hard. Just kind of cool aesthetic. Kind of reminds me of Aztecs, but spam your arrows and then throw a bomb in his mouth and he blows up. Do it 3 times and he's done.
Sweet. Awesome. So we win that. We get I think we go up to the roof and ring a bell, and the bell creates a portal which lets us go to the sunken kingdom of Hyrule. So we go underwater, Link holds his breath in a cute little scene, finds out he can breathe. We appear in a black and white courtyard. So that's where we're going to pick. We're in a little pond, in a courtyard, in a black and white castle, and we're tasked with exploring this area. So
yeah, castle sitting on a cliff, it looks like.
Yeah.
And if you look around, there's something that looks like a tower from Breath of the Wild off in the distance.
Interesting. Cool. So
I was like, that literally looks exactly like a tower. It's got like the 5 different pointy ends on it. And you're like, wow. Like, huh. This is either like a blatant, like when they made Breath of the Wild, they were cognizant of, hey, we should use some of these things like in the sunken world underneath in Wind Waker. So very cool.
Sweet.
Very cool.
Cool. But that's where we're going to end the adventure in this time, kind of our halfway point of this adventure. We'll come back, clean up some of the Master Sword parts, maybe some side quests over the next 2 months, and then we're done with this game. So finally we got to look at the mysterious areas of the Great Sea. So we're going to just talk about some of the most interesting islands that we visit. This one we could pick Windfall, Dragon Roost, Forest Haven, and the Temple of the Gods. So kind of anything that we missed in terms of why they're mysterious here. Then obviously now we've done kind of the big temples. Hopefully maybe some other islands pop up too. The island or the goddess islands or the fairy islands, are they mysterious? No, they're just obviously statues and fairy fountains. So.
How about the islands that look like dice?
Ooh. Oh, we'll probably...
what's going on? What's going on with these things?
Yeah, we'll get to those next time. So Windfall Island. So the game's main village / trading hub. There are several NPCs here to interact with, some mini games, and a few hidden areas. Based on it being kind of the town of the game, and has a windmill and a grave. I guess most of the graveyard fell into the ocean. Most people theorize that Windfall Island is Kakariko Village.
It has to be.
Okay.
Has to be. It's the one I was like, I feel like I should be involved in Kakori Village or something, but that's just my brain being like, No, Tyson, Kakariko Village is the more important one. That's the one that appears in Link to the Past.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
And I mean, I guess the theory is, or like my headcanon for the way this game works is as the flood was occurring, the goddesses used their powers and like raised up certain landmarks to the top of the ocean, right? So
yes.
this is in fact Kakariko Village, and you're like, oh, why isn't it under the sea? Because I think the goddesses literally like caused the earth to like rise it out of the water, right? So people could live.
Yeah, they tried to save as much as they could, which is why there's very sparse areas, and like, a lot of it's flooded.
But like lots of them are like magical creatures. So like, how did the fairy fountain come out of the ocean? Well, the fairies have magic power, right? Tingle. Does Tingle have some type of magical powers? Probably some low-level magic that the gods bestowed him the ability to raise the out of the sea, right? So I think it was very strategic. And if you look at each island, outside of them some of them just being like random rock structures, yeah, sure, that would happen with mountain ranges, right? But anything that's kind of less than that, or has some type of magical entity, it would make sense that they were like raised out of the water by some supernatural force, right? And you'd assume great fairies have that ability. Okay, cool, great. About Dragon Roost Island, so now inhabited by the Rito tribe. This island is actually supposed to be Death Mountain. So the dungeon is then, I guess, kind of an aged fire temple, and Valu would be a descendant of the dragon from Ocarina of Time, Volvagia.
Okay, yeah, no, I could see that. Because I was like, have I seen a Goron in this game? Like, I don't think I've seen a Goron.
There are some. Keep your eye open in Windfall Island. There's a trading segment with some like Goron traders, but most of them are like they wear funny hats and sit on rafts.
Right. Yeah. And there is like the smoke coming out of this island. It looks like it's kind of got that Death Mountain spiral on the top of the
one. And there was a couple things. I think when you're in the Rito village as you're exploring, there are. Like, look at the hallways. The hallways look very much like Darunia's Goron village, right? They're very similar hallways. They're kind of like shaped out of the rock structure. So how do these Rito people live there? Well, the Gorons once lived here, and then as the rains or floods, they decided to leave and abandon it. And the flightless creatures who were like the Zoras, they evolved. The fish Zoras evolved into bird people, and they started living in the Goron village.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So if you ever go back there, notice how much it looks like the Goron village tunnels and stuff. And there's like a big room, and just imagine a big pot flying around that room.
Yeah. No, I kind of got that vibe now that when you mentioned it, I was like, oh, it kind of does have that same like wood.
The shores,
stone doors that like move.
The shores around the village are done with balm flowers.
Oh yes. Okay. Of course.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Interesting.
All right. So the Forest Haven. So the big trees are actually the Kakariko Forest, the Kokori Forest, and the Forbidden Woods are the Lost Woods. There you go. So the Forest Haven is actually the Kokori Forest, and that we see the Deku tree in this one is theorized as being the Deku shrub from Ocarina of Time, now all grown up.
Oh, I could see that because he's definitely, he feels a little bit younger.
And off the top of this podcast, he definitely greets you in ancient Hylian text that we don't see, but he greets you and says, "Oh, the hero of time, you've returned."
Oh, yeah. Oh, and maybe we get to that in the next episode, but there's some cool stained glass paneling.
Yes.
Of a bunch of characters.
Oh, so you played ahead, too.
I finished. I got the Master Sword.
Okay.
And then I finished that section.
Okay,
cool. And then I'm back to the Great Ocean.
Sea. Awesome. Cool. All right. So this is, and then finally the last area here is the Temple of the Gods. So not much lore here. It's probably a temple built by the gods to test anyone who wanted to go looking for the Master Sword in the sunken or lost Hyrule. That's... Yeah,
I was going to say, I'm like, would this be something like the Temple of Time? But it
is directly above Hyrule Castle, but I think it's just a new structure based on meant to test people to go into old Hyrule. So it literally was left as a remnant, as like a test, right? That's why the King of Red Lion vaguely knows about this, right? So
Right. Okay.
cool. Sweet. So that wraps up our areas of this. We're going to go over an hour on this show. Wow. I'll be honest with you. I did not see that coming.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's fun to talk about Wind Waker. So I mean, I think we've been gushing and taking a few too many tangents, but it's fun because it's like this game. After playing Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, really like recently, and then going back to this, you're like, oh my god, there's so many like references and so many
and it's funny how
that can lead to this.
And it's funny how you look at the game. So when I got off the pirate ship after getting the bombs, there's a little plank that takes you to a platform where you can run around. And I saw there was a pirate mast. So the first thing I did was I climbed up the pirate mast and jumped off of it with my Deku leaf and just floated. Because I was like, this seems like the most efficient way of traveling in this game. And I caught myself being like, oh my gosh, like Breath of the Wild has literally changed how I play Zelda games, right? Like without the ability to glide, I don't know if I can play a Zelda game. So I'm thankful that it exists. And like it's weird that my brain just defaults to traveling in that manner.
Oh, and once you have that option to move like that, you're like, oh, this is just the most efficient way of doing it. I'm gonna do this default.
There you go. Okay. So then finally, all we have is a cultural significance, part 2 of our 4-part series. And then we're gonna get out of here. So in this section, we're gonna look at a few elements from this game with finer magnifying glass. Last time we talked about the impact of the art direction of this game. Today, we're gonna look at fantasy elements and stories. Next week, we're gonna talk about the lore. And we'll do a final wrap-up of some chat. Maybe some more lore or something. I'm not sure what part 4 is yet. But today, there was some talk when this game came out that it went too away from its kind of high fantasy roots, right? They wanted kings and kingdoms and knights and forests and fields and just more high fantasy, right? Princesses, not oceans. That's silly. So, however, though, I propose to a thought experiment. Which classic literary character was Link based on? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head.
So it's Peter Pan. So when they first were designing Link, they wanted a boy in green clothes with red hair. Why do you think
that makes sense?
NES Peter Pan? Cool. All right. What if we look at the text of Peter Pan lives in Neverland. It's an island surrounded by a vast sea. He lives with lost boys in the woods. He sleeps in a tree. He has a fairy companion. That sounds a lot like Ocarina of Time. But not so much. But it didn't come from high fantasy. It came from this children's story.
Right.
But didn't Peter Pan also interact with a group of pirates?
Sure did.
So wouldn't it make sense if there was islands and seas and a pirate that he kind of interacted with? Okay, so maybe the pirates are actually directly in line with the narrative and like origins of this character. Okay, so you have a boy in green clothes, pirates, fairies, lost woods, living in a tree, mermaids, and I guess the only thing we're missing is a game, or in this game is that the enemy should have a big crocodile. But I guess Ganon does kind of have a big bird. Huh.
Yeah, well, it's also a sea, so crocodiles and seas don't really
True. Yeah. True. Okay.
Go hand in hand. So you gotta take a little bit of liberties, but yeah, like if you ask somebody on the side of the road, like just stop somebody in the street and be like, hey, guess what, like franchise I'm describing? A boy in green. There's some pirates. There's some fairies. There's some lost woods, and he lives in a tree. And there's some mermaids. They're gonna be like, that's Peter Pan. Like, no, it's Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. Why don't you know this?
Right. So thematically, it kind of does play well. The islands are kind of cute. They almost do have kind of a Peter Pan aesthetic. And then once you start seeing it and you start thinking about it, you say, oh my God, that's why there are pirates in this game, isn't there? Not because it's just a high sea adventure, but because going back really to the origins of Link and his design, pirates are there the whole time. So, and think about any of the Game Boy games, right? We saw pirates in the Capcom games for the Game Boy Color, right? And the Oracle games. So it is just kind of a natural 100%. Evolution for them being more included in this, right? So even though it seemed like it kind of came out of nowhere, we've always kind of had pirates in Zelda.
Yeah, and I think it's also so just like in our own human history, we went from like living in castles and like all that kind of stuff to like as time changed and things progressed, there was like eventually came a period of time where we were mostly moving by sea, and what comes with seas, it's like it's pirates. So it's almost like even historically wise, like if there's in the world of Zelda, if there was like castles and knights and all that stuff at one point, it's theoretically after a couple hundred years that and most of the world is accessed by seas, you're gonna have pirates.
Yeah.
It's like it's just a natural progression of like as time moves along. So it's very interesting.
Sweet, cool. And then finally, so that's more of the tie-ins, and then just other pieces of media potentially that this game drew inspiration from, right? So at some points throughout the sea, there's giant octopus or octopi that you can fight. I guess they'd be called octoroks. Very much similar to the giant octopus fight from, say, 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea, right? The King of Red Lion boat kind of resembles Viking longboats, right? So they drew sort of some inspiration there. The Rito are first time we're shown them in this series, and they're kind of human bird-like creatures, right? We've been telling stories about kind of bird-like creatures ever since ancient Egyptian times. There was lots in Greek mythology, Roman mythology. They've just kind of always kind of been there. And then the Kokiri tribe kind of reminds you a lot of the Ents from Lord of the Rings. So they're kind of these wooden creatures that are functional, living in the forest, right? And they provide services. So in this game, they spread the seeds of the great tree across the ocean, trying to create more oceans. Essentially what Ents do. So...
yeah, or even like in fantasy things, like what was it called? Like a dryad?
Okay.
Like those
sure.
people that are half like
exactly.
wood?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And then that from to Dryad, that will recall us with, say, Greek mythology. And I know that some of the characters in this, like the birds, the Karkaroks or whatever, and the mini blins, so those are those little pitchfork guys, they look an awful lot like, say, centaur characters from Greek mythology, right? In Greek mythology, a lot of those stories, say the Herculeses, they kind of always reference, at least in my mind, beautiful blue oceans of the Mediterranean, and these white cliffs and nice green grasses and boats that you travel around, right? So stories of Greek mythology are kind of seen throughout, right? The moblins that you fight in this game kind of have like a minotaur aesthetic kind of thing, and Greek mythology really reigns, at least in my mind, kind of when I think about this game, right? So I think they pull a lot from classic literature, classic mythology to kind of help build up this world, this lore, this interactive, this nice art style that we get in this game. So
and it's interesting you mentioned Greek, because I'm even just looking at just like a screenshot of it right now, and it's interesting because even some of the pillars just look like they're Greek pillars.
Yes.
But then it's also like in a castle or whatever, and it's like it's very like they're blending a lot of these things into this world, and I think it just makes it more rich. It's so fascinating.
Cool, sweet. So that is my what were we talking about today? Fantasy
cultural significance.
Fantasy elements. So just the lots of the things we've seen in our real world, our lore, our mythologies have kind of come together, and I think helped build up this world. So hopefully that was. I brought up something you're like, I never thought of that before. Cool, neat.
Yeah, I think so. I think I had a couple of even those myself.
Nice.
So
Solid. Sweet. So cool. So with that wraps up this episode of this series. We got 2 left. Still a little bit of game left, right? I'm not sure exactly how we'll break those down. But hopefully you guys join us as we kind of carry on with the series and go from there. Did we miss anything?
Didn't say James Bond, so that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, other than that, I think we covered it. Kind of went into a little bit of some side tangents and enjoyed all the Breath of the Wild. Kind of like, this is making me think.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah, so it's good. I can't wait to see what happens when we get this. When we explore this temple. I've kind of already spoiled it with getting the Master Sword, but yeah, what happens? That's a big moment in any Zelda game.
Yep.
So
weird things always happen when you pull out the Master Sword. So what weird thing will happen this time?
Yeah, probably nothing.
Sweet. Cool. So with that, we'll see you guys in, I guess, a month's time. We're back in 2 weeks, and I think we're playing South Park 64. So
Yeah,
Cool.
should be fun time. Playing a bunch of fun games this year. So reach out to us on YouTube or email us at podtendo@gmail.com.
Yeah. Sweet.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay. So
Yeah.
see you guys in 2 weeks, or if you're just watching these Zelda shows, it'll be a month. So cool.
Yep. See you then, and talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.